So here we are with, well, we're going to be talking about the biggest winners of the decade. This is 2009 to 2019. So with that being said, let's talk about it after the cut. You would have to be brain dead to not consider Sony to be one of the biggest winners of the decade. Now, I know what some people are going to say, but I don't like Sony. Look, I'm not a huge fan of Sony either, but I'm not going to let my bias get in the way of just admitting they're really successful. So with that being said, let's talk about how they were so successful. Well, Sony was able to do something thanks to the total malfeasance of Microsoft. Basically, Sony was able to do all the shit Microsoft wanted to do with the Xbox One X, or the Xbox One X-Bone, that they weren't able to do with their Sony console. That Sony wasn't initially able to do. The games as a service, the microtransactions, the online check-ins, the always-on DRM. They were able to do that shit. And the reason they were able to get away with it is because when Microsoft tried to do the same shit, people gave them were all on their ass, but, you know, while Microsoft was busy getting, you know, being read the Riot Act, Sony was able to get away with it. And it's friggin' amazing. Like, that no one, no one really talks about that. No one really talks about how Sony was able to get away with it. But, I mean, all joking aside, Sony really did have a big decade. They basically had the PS4 out for most of the decade, and it's worked remarkably well for them. Astonishingly well for how, in my mind, mediocre it is as a console. There's some really good games out for the PS4, like astonishingly good games for the system that are exclusives. Because really, unlike what many people will tell you, exclusives matter in video gaming. It's not about multiplex. It's about exclusives. It's about people being able to say, oh, well, I can play this, and this game on this system. People want that. People want that type of shit. Okay. So with that being said, let's move on to the next biggest winner of the decade. And after the cut. So, Nintendo is the second biggest winner of the decade because they managed to do something amazing that we just were not prepared to see. And what they were able to do is Nintendo was able to basically rebound from a console that didn't do as well as it should have, the Wii U, and create a hybrid of their home console and their handheld. Now, to be fair, you know, I'm not going to ignore the elephant in the room, which is the Switch doesn't do what a dedicated handheld or a dedicated home console can do as well. Just like many things, just like everything else. As a hybrid, it doesn't do either of those functions as well as something that's dedicated to do that. With that being said, it's pretty good at what it does, and it's a really successful console. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm just talking about how, I feel about it. It also has something going. Nintendo was able to salvage a lot of stuff off of the Wii U by basically just putting out a lot of quality games that we would not have gotten had it been on a more commercially and critically successful console. We were able to get Splatoon. We were able to get Captain Toad. We were able to get Super Mario 3D World, which hands down is one of the best Mario games I've played in a long time. We were also able to get what else? We were also able to get Wonderful 101 and Captain Toad, and one of the best 2D Mario games we've ever gotten. One of the reasons I'm not really impressed with the Switch is that a lot of those games were ported over to the Switch, and they're made lesser by the fact that they were ported over to that system, because there's functionality missing from a lot of them. And one of the biggest squad-based shooters that we've had from Nintendo, by the way, Splatoon. Which, I mean, to be fair, I'm just going to say this right now, Splatoon is a really good game, and to be honest with you, I don't think that game, Splatoon 2 is okay, but really, Splatoon 2, to me, isn't as good as the first Splatoon, because you're missing the second screen experience, which you had on the Wii U, and kind of made sense. It really made that game better and more enjoyable. And you don't have it with Splatoon 2, which, whatever. But Nintendo managed to do all that, and they're doing pretty well. So, kudos, golf clap to them, one of the biggest winners of the decade. The next winner after the cut. So, the next set of, how can I put this, winners of the decade is the indies, the indie developers. Indie developers have shown that they have the chops to essentially do all types of cool shit that, third-party developers, like, the big conglomerate developers just can't do, because they can't take those risks. They have to stay safe. Case in point, this indie studio from Panama released a Bug Fable, which to me is one of the best games that it's basically the Paper Mario game we deserve, and yet Nintendo has had years to release a good Paper Mario game, and they haven't done it. I know some people will be like, but I like insert Paper Mario game, but I like Sticker Star and Color Splash and all that shit. Good for you. This is my video. I don't. I think they're trash. I think Sticker Star was, really bad, and I feel that, Color Splash was better, but saying Color Splash was better than Sticker Star is like saying that, I ate at this place and the food was slightly better. It did make me physically ill to eat at this place. And that's not a high mark of accomplishment, okay? It really isn't, okay? That's not like, oh man, well this is the small barrier. That's like, it's like really the food should be good and it should be wholesome and it shouldn't make you sick. Anything less than that is like, that's, not reaching that goal, it's a failure, automatically. So, it is what it is. The indies have done that. The indies have stepped up and basically been able to do a lot of cool shit that we normally have not gotten from, certain more mainline developers, right? Like indies are re-releasing beat 'em ups that are creating beat 'em ups that these big companies haven't been doing, like River City Ransom, Girls, or the indie studio making the new Streets of Rage. Like, indie studios are having to step up and pick up the pieces where the big studios are fucking up repeatedly. And I mean, it's sad on one hand that the big studios can't do this, but it's good that the indies are stepping up and taking charge, and it's amazing. So that being said, we got to talk about the next biggest winner of the decade after the cut. Well, as the title placard says, PC gaming is one of the biggest winners of this decade. Not sure why, but they are. You know, whether you agree or disagree, PC gaming has consistently just been... I mean, PC gaming has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm including the more casual people who are playing like Bejeweled and shit like that. PC gaming has gotten bigger and more expansive and all that type of shit. So, with that being said, I mean, you know, that makes it, in my mind, that makes it a viable thing. You know, it's this big, huge thing that has really, you know, taken on a life of its own. You know, and PC gaming, you know, since the 80s when PCs finally became affordable for a lot of people, it's still like it's starting to get big again in a big way, and we have not seen that for a while. And everyone's always like, well, you know, and I'm saying this as someone who is a big console person, but PC gaming's getting huge. It's getting huge. It's getting ginormous. And that's amazing to me. And, you know, I'm happy. I'm happy about it. I know some people are going to be like, PC gaming. PC gaming's gotten huge. And with the advent of more and more games, more and more AAA games coming to PC, it's kind of driving some... It's driving some, console gaming to irrelevancy, which I know some people are going to be like, but I like console gaming. Look, listen, I know people like console gaming. They like the simplicity of it and all that shit, but, I mean, if you want to be able to play a lot of games that you normally would not be able to play, without having to own 3 different consoles, the PC's your friend. You know, a lot of games, like Super Smash, I got that game on PC before it came to the Switch. I mean, that's the type of cool shit we're dealing with, and I love it. I'm really like, wow, this is... And I got it cheaper, too. You know, so, you know, PC gaming has never been cheaper. You wait for a game to go on sale, and you get it cheap. You know, you can get games that are like majorly on sale for really low prices. It's ridiculous how cheap gaming, PC gaming has made gaming in general. So, you know, if you're all about that bargain, PC gaming's for you. So with that being said, let's move on to the next, I think final winner after the cut. So, the gamers. Now you could ask yourself, how the hell can you say that the biggest losers, that the gamers were the biggest losers, and also the biggest winners? Allow me to elaborate, okay? It's kind of like if I said the people, right? But, I mean, just because that's a generalized statement, you know? It's not like, oh my god, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. So... the gamers, you know, the people who refused to buy Fallout 76, the people who, you know, didn't accept the bullshit-ass statements from these developers, the people who didn't buy certain games that did not fulfill certain things, that didn't do certain things, the people who didn't accept that bullshit, you are the true winners of the decade. The people who said, you're fucking me over. I don't like to be fucked over, so I won't be going with this. You guys are some of the biggest winners of the decade. And you deserve it. You deserve it. The people who called Bethesda out on their bullshit. The people who called Epic out on their bullshit. The people who wouldn't accept mediocrity and held out for better. You guys are the biggest winners of the decade. And you deserve it. You deserve you deserve every win that you got because you earned it. More so than a lot of other developers, you earned it. So with that being said, I'll get to the conclusion after the cut. So in conclusion, this has been a very interesting decade. We've seen companies, we've seen a lot of changes, and we've seen things stay the same. Microsoft is still the losers that they've always been since they got into the console industry. Nintendo's had their up and downs where some people have listened to them, others have been like, fuck them. Sony has been up and down as well. We've seen the rise of indies, which we saw a lot of indies during the the early console industry, but we've seen a lot of indies come back during this generation, this end of the 6th, beginning of the 7th, into the 8th. The end of the 7th into the 8th. We've seen a lot of indies come into the scene, mostly on PC, but also on some of the dedicated consoles. So that's a good thing. And a lot of the times, the indies are picking up the slack. I mean, we've gotten, spiritual successors to Advance Wars, and from 2 different indie developers. We've gotten spiritual successors to all types of games from indies. They've really picked up the slack. And these games aren't console specific. You can get them on lots of platforms. And that's amazing. That's a good thing. So with that being said, that's the end of this video. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Enjoy your holidays. Have fun with your family. If you don't have family, just have fun. Peace and good night.